And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Today I'm talking about two expansions for Wealth of Nations. This one is War Clouds. It's a large expansion which adds war to a game that already feels like it is warfare. And this one is just a small expansion called Super Industry Tiles. In fact, this comes with 3 tiles, but one of these tiles is actually included in this expansion. So if you're going to get an expansion, get this one first. But this one adds a small variety to the game. War Clouds comes with some updated rules to Wealth of Nations, and if you're interested in those, I just reviewed Wealth of Nations again, re-reviewed it, and I'll talk about the rule changes there. But it adds some new elements, and that's what I want to look at, the new elements that are added by both of these. Are they worth getting for your game of Wealth of Nations? Let's see. Alright, 3 of these are the entirety of the Super Industrial Tile expansion, and one of them, the one that's duplicated, is also found in the War Clouds, and they're basically played the same way. They come with these little cards which I've kept because they show the price of each of these tiles, but there's rules in both expansions about this, but it basically comes down to this. These tiles just have 2 colors on them, so they can be part of 2 different industries. This one can be part of food and energy, this one's energy and labor. This one here is just a special bank tile. You can see that it's different than a normal bank tile. It's more expensive. I'm really not sure what the point of it is. I guess if you really wanted to expand your banking and make banking big, I haven't seen as much of a use. But the other 3 can be very, very handy. If you have a couple blocks on the board like these blue and red, you can say, oh look, this piece fits in there exactly. And it's really as if you put down 2 separate tiles. They're not, they're connected to each other, but you can't use something from one to power the other. You have to pay for both separately. But it's a good way to fit things on the board, pieces on the board, and can come in really handy. In fact, in the War Clouds expansion, this tile here, the integrated economy, is part of one of the starting packages, which certainly makes it more useful. So this is a nice addition, not a necessary one, but not a very complex one to add either. People understand it almost instantly. You can teach new players this with no problem at all. The game also comes with several mountain impassable terrain tiles, which you can take and place on the board in different configurations. The rulebook gives you several to pick from. All this does basically is make the board smaller and make it harder to put things on the board. So if you want a tougher, even tighter game, then this is for you. Now, I'm not so masochistic that I really want to do this. I'm not really sure what the... I don't get the joy. Maybe putting 1 or 2 on the board to make it a little bit tighter, but the board already felt pretty tight as it was, especially in a game with multiple players. But hey, if you want a tighter, even more evil game, then this part of War Clouds expansion is for you. The biggest change in this game is the addition of war units, as if the game wasn't warlike enough as it was. But now you have pieces that you can attack with. To build one of these pieces on your turn, you pay 1 energy and 1 labor cube, and you can place one on a spot on the board that's controlled by you. So let's say I pay that, I could put one of my military units on the board. Now, military units are used for a lot of different ways. On your turn, you can pay 1 yellow cube to activate up to 3 military units. That allows them to move 1 adjacent space and do an operation if they can. Or you can pay 1 white cube, and basically you can move them anywhere on the board as long as you move them onto a space with your flag or to an empty spot. Well, what's the point of these military units? Well, if you're in a spot with another military unit, you can simply declare an attack and the units are removed 1 for 1. If you're in an empty spot with an opponent's flag, you can get rid of their flag and replace it with their own. Not on a block itself, not on an industry itself, but on an empty one. And this keeps people from just willy-nilly placing flags over the board because they're going to be attacked by enemy units. You can also take your own unit, remove it from the board, and basically settle once it comes off the board, and then you just put a flag there where your unit was. So that's settling. And then one of the most evil things you can do is have your unit on a spot that someone else owns, on an industry, and declare that you're occupying it, thereby taking 1 cube if they decide to produce with that area. And of course, usually they're going to want to get their cube for themselves, But they can be spiteful and just shut down the whole area to stop you from getting anything, in which case you've succeeded also. So this adds a lot of different strategy to the game. Certainly makes it as if the game wasn't already cutthroat enough. This adds an even higher level of cutthroat. I'm glad that you can't capture different areas from another person. That would probably cause the game to be too evil. This does slow the game down considerably, I would say. Probably adds another 10-15 minutes per player as you play the game, just because you're wasting resources, in a sense, buying military units and fighting back and forth. One more thing that the game has that I really like are these planning mats. And basically this shows you all the actions that you can take. But what's really nice is that you can take your cubes and put them on it. Let's say you're planning to build a farm. Then you simply place 2 cubes there on the farm area. If you plan this turn on building a military unit, you put your cubes there. If you need to remember to run your generator, you're going to need an energy and a certain amount of food. Or running your academy, I'm sorry. You might need 2 food and energy. And so you can put your cubes all over the board where you know you're going to need them. That way you don't accidentally forget cubes. And then any cubes you have for trade, you can put up here, which allows people to instantly see what cubes you're getting rid of. This really makes the game a lot easier. Yes, I suppose experienced players would already know all this information, but it's just a really handy-dandy thing to have because it allows you to get your cubes, and this cuts down on people making mistakes. Like, oh, I forgot to save that extra food to run this factory. Well, now you won't forget the food because you'll place the food on the factory to make sure that you have enough food to run it. This is just a nice addition to the game. The game also comes with some optional rules, like a cash-only start for people who are absolutely crazy, or different, other few optional rules. But overall, it's a pretty interesting expansion. I can definitively say that this expansion is not for everybody. Not everyone's going to want to attack other people and get right up in their faces as they play the game. But, I mean, you are playing Wealth of Nations to begin with, but you may not want this addition. To me, those planning mats are really neat. The version 2.0 rule changes are nice. The integrated economy tile, I'm talking about war clouds here, they're neat things. The impassable terrain, I can take or leave that. The war, for me personally, I'll play sometimes with it, sometimes without it. Depends who I'm playing with. I'm playing really aggressive people, then let's do it. But I'm not sure how friendly we'll be after the game, because it really does make the game a whole lot more in your face, back and forth. But hey, it's very well designed, it's neat, and it's amazing how far they've taken this economic game, Wealth of Nations. 2 thumbs up for this expansion, with the caveat that if you're someone who kind of gets a little shy when someone's hitting you and attacking you and stabbing you while you're down, you might want to pass it by.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.